Today, we're pulling a cartridge from one of gaming's most misunderstood consoles, the Atari Jaguar, and examining a title that perfectly captures the ambition and the anguish of the era. But before we even look at the box art, I want you to think about this. What if a game's greatest strength was also its most famous flaw? We're talking, of course, about Cannon Fodder. It's a port of a brilliant PC and Amiga game that had to be completely rethought for a console controller, resulting in an experience that's both fascinating and at times famously frustrating. We're going to look at what made the original game so special, why the Jaguar version is such a unique and challenging beast, and how a title about the senselessness of war became one of the system's most memorable conflicts. And I'll expose one aspect of the game that made this version almost impossible to finish. First, let's set the stage by understanding what Sensible Software created. Launched in 1993 initially for the Amiga, Cannon Fodder was a genre blender. It looked like a top-down shooter, but it played with the tactical precision of a strategy game. You controlled a squad of up to 6 soldiers, directing them with a point-and-click interface that was second nature to PC and Amiga users. But the real genius wasn't in the controls. It was in the feeling that the game cultivated. The goal was to guide your little men, each with a name plucked from a roster of hundreds, through 24 perilous missions. Your troopers were lethally efficient, but one shot could kill. This forced you to use terrain for cover, think about positioning, and employ explosive weaponry sparingly. The game was infused with a dark, satirical wit, from its reggae-inspired theme song to the gravestones that piled up on Boot Hill between missions. Creator John Hare was explicit. This was meant to be an anti-war game. The permanent tally of the dead was designed to make you feel the real cost. On a platform like the Amiga with the mouse, this vision came together seamlessly. The controls were intuitive, the difficulty was tough but fair, and the overall experience was hailed as a masterpiece. And that foundation is critical to understand, because what happened next is where the Jaguar story truly begins. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or more accurately, that bulky Jaguar controller in your hand. Porting Cannon Fodder to the Atari Jaguar in 1995 was a monumental task of translation. The core gameplay, which was built around the precision of a mouse pointer, had to be mapped onto the Jaguar's distinctive keypad. The manual lays out the system. You move a pointer with the directional pad, press C to move your squad leader, press B to bring up a crosshair and fire. On paper it works. In practice, it introduces a layer of deliberate slowness and occasional clunkiness that fundamentally alters the game's rhythm. And here's the key insight. This wasn't a mistake. It was an inevitable compromise. On the Amiga, you could quickly click around the battlefield, splitting your squad and reacting with speed. On the Jaguar, moving the pointer across the screen feels methodical. Issuing commands has a slight delay. And in a game where seconds mean the difference between a successful mission and a slaughter, this control scheme became a significant part of the challenge. It makes a tactical, cautious playstyle an absolute necessity for survival. For players revisiting this, the controls can feel like the first major obstacle. They're not broken, but they demand patience that the original version did not. This inherent friction from the controls is the first brick in the wall of the Jaguar version's legendary difficulty, and it sets the stage for what I'm about to show you next. This brings us to the game's structure and its brutal, almost sadistic difficulty curve. Cannon Fodder on the Jaguar follows the same 24 missions as the original, but the combination of the controller and the game's own unforgiving design creates a perfect storm. Here's what I mean. The early missions serve as a deceptively gentle tutorial. You learn to move, to shoot, and to use vehicles. But soon, the training wheels come off in a way that feels deliberately cruel. The enemy count swells. Their accuracy improves. You encounter sniper units hiding in bushes, incoming artillery from fixed turrets, and enemies piloting armed vehicles. The terrain itself turns against you with quicksand, deep water that leaves your troops defenseless, and minefields. The objectives become complex mixtures of destroy all enemy buildings, rescue hostages, and protect all civilians, sometimes within the same mission. And the game expects you to master squad splitting, using the option button to separate troops into different groups to execute pincer movements. A single mistake can force you to restart the entire phase. And you will restart, often. The difficulty curve doesn't just ramp up, it becomes a sheer cliff face. By the final third of the campaign, missions feel less like a tactical puzzle and more like a survival horror. This extreme challenge is a point of pride and pain for Jaguar players. But to fully appreciate how unique this approach was, we need to contrast it with another massive war game, 1995. It's interesting to compare this with a contemporary titan of the strategy genre that released the same year as the Jaguar port, Westwood Studios' Command and Conquer. While both are military-themed, their approach is worlds apart, and understanding this contrast reveals the true ambition of Cannon Fodder. Command & Conquer is a grand, macro-scale real-time strategy game. You harvest resources, build bases, and command armies from a detached, godlike perspective. It's about economy, large-scale tactics, and overwhelming force. Cannon Fodder is the micro-scale opposite. There's no base building, there's no resource gathering. You're never in command of an army. Instead, you're shepherding a handful of fragile individuals. The focus is actually intensely personal, and every loss is felt on Boot Hill. I actually felt a little bit guilty and sad getting guys on my squad blown up, and then seeing a new cross appear on the hill. Especially when it happened over and over and the number of gravestones really started piling up. While Command & Conquer is a power fantasy of global domination, Cannon Fodder is a morbid type of Groundhog Day about the pointlessness of human attrition. This distinction's crucial. It highlights how Cannon Fodder was never trying to be a traditional war game. It was more like an interactive satire about the futility of war, and its conversion to the Jaguar with all the added friction somehow makes that critique even sharper. The struggle for the control mirrors the futility of the conflict, and for the most persistent players who battled through that brutal difficulty, the game had one final, infamous surprise waiting. We're talking about the bugs. Specifically the type of game-ending bug that could halt your progress entirely. I need to show you what this looked like, because it's the stuff of legend in Jaguar forums. The most notorious one is found in later missions, often reported in the mission My Beautiful Scoot. Under certain conditions related to the destruction of enemy buildings or the specific order of which you complete objectives, the game can enter a state where it simply will not end. The mission objective is met, but the completion trigger fails. Your troops are left standing in a silent, empty battlefield, with no way to proceed except to raise the white flag of defeat and restart the phase, hoping to avoid the buggy trigger again. For a game this demanding, to have victory snatched away by a software glitch is the ultimate insult. It really is legendary to the point of frustration and, in my experience, rage quitting more than a few times. These bugs weren't widespread enough to be caught by every player, but for those who encountered them, it cemented the Jaguar version's reputation as the ultimate, unforgiving gauntlet. It's a stark reminder of the pressures of the console wars in the mid-90s, where ports were sometimes rushed to market, leaving rough edges that became part of the system's legacy. So after seeing the controls, the difficulty, and even bugs, what are we left with as we evaluate this port? Well, we have a port of a bona fide classic, a game of immense cultural importance for its anti-war stance and innovative design. You have a control scheme that translates mouse-driven tactics into a gamepad language, creating a slower, more deliberate, and much harder experience. We have a difficulty curve that escalates to near impossible levels, demanding perfection. And we have the haunting specter of bugs that can rear their ugly head and bite you, right at the finish line. No! So for the collector and the retro enthusiast, it's an essential piece of the Jaguar puzzle, a showcase of the kind of ambitious, adult-oriented software that the system attracted. It's a conversation starter about approaches to porting games across systems and their hardware limitations, but most importantly, it's a time capsule. Playing it today on original Jaguar hardware, with the original manual open, you're engaging with an artifact that represents a specific moment in gaming. A moment when a small developer can make a provocative statement, when a console like the Jaguar fought for relevance with ports that were anything but safe, and when difficulty wasn't a setting to be adjusted, but an inescapable part of the experience. Yeah, it's flawed, it's frustrating, but it's somehow still really fun, and it's unforgettable in its own way. And in the crowded field of retro gaming, that's a kind of magic that never gets old. I personally love this game, and I still play it today. But that's just what I think. What's your take on Cannon Fodder? How does it stack up against the Amiga version? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your views. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'd like to invite you to subscribe for more feel-good retro gaming content. Alright my friends, this is the Retro Gaming Boss signing out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.